4D Rapunzel in a Tower Acrylic Nail Art Tutorial by Hotpinkzebrapolish. Hi guys, in today's video I am going to show you a really cool design that I am so in love with. It is a Rapunzel 4D nail art design where she can actually let her hair down. So it's got a little hole that the braid can slide through, so it can either be behind the nail where you don't see much of her hair, or you can pull that hair out and it gets really long. So like I said, I love this design. I hope you guys love it as much as I do, and don't forget to click subscribe to see all my future videos as well. So to begin with, I'm going to start by creating the background to my tower with gray acrylic, and as you can see, I left it on a pretty straight line, just a little bit down from the cuticle area, and I'll kind of straighten that up a bit better with my brush. So you want to create that nice sharp line. If you want to use something like an X-Acto knife or a piece of wire or something to make it a bit more perfect, go ahead and do that. I figured my brush was good enough, but if you want to get a bit more fancy with it, go ahead, that is up to you. And then just fill in the rest of the nail with that gray color. It's a medium gray. And then I'm going to take more of it, and I'm going to add the little jagged edge at the top of the tower, that little zigzag kind of masonry. So we place down a couple beads of gray that have a gap between them, and then after they've set for just a second where you can work with them, you can form them into your little tower top. So sculpt those like that. And then after you have the first two done, I'm going to go through and I'm going to fill in little ones on the edge. For this, I did use very square tweezers to fix up any of my lines that needed to be sharpened some. So then here is that last one on the edge over there. So that's not an entire square, it's a partial square because I don't have that space, but you can do however much of it you like. Going back to my tweezers to straighten up any edges. My brush just didn't quite fit in the way that I would have liked it to. And then apply light blue for the sky color in the background. You don't really see too much sky here, but there is just a little bit over the background, so just encase that area. Then file off the extra blue acrylic off of your gray with an E-file. You could do this with a hand file if you like. Well, for that matter, you can do just about anything with a hand file. But for me, it's a lot easier just to take it off with an E-file really quick. And then I'm going to encase the nail with a layer of clear acrylic to make sure that it is nice and strong. This one I'm not too worried about it being breakable because there is a lot of acrylic applied to the top of it. So if it doesn't get encased and it does start out a little bit thinner, there's going to be so much 3D work going over the entire nail that it's probably okay anyways if you just skip this part. So after you have that done, you're going to file it once again into shape with your E-file. I'm going to start out with a coarse bit to remove any bulk. There was just a little bit. I always think there's a little bit of bulk, especially around the side walls, just to make sure that I thin those out and make them look really sleek. And then take a finer bit, and I'm going to go over the entire thing. That's going to make sculpting everything else on top of it much easier so that you don't have to worry about it, dealing with any scratches or anything that'll make it a bit more difficult. So then on some kind of a plastic tube or straw or something that you can sculpt on where the acrylic will pop off of, I'm going to sculpt another layer to my tower top. So first begin with a nice curved long rectangle. You want it to be wider than the nail is. Mine ended up being about the same width, but if you can, I would have made it just a little bit wider than I did. And basically repeat your steps, add the little rectangles on the top, little squares. I'm just gonna keep saying shapes until I get the right one. Add your squares on the top, although rectangle is also an appropriate word because every square is a rectangle. So they follow the same rules. But anyways, go ahead and just add those on the top like that. Try to make them the same height and the same width and the same as the ones that you did in the nail. So try to balance those out so they look very, very similar, and it looks like it is all part of the same tower. After you have that done, apply another layer of gray acrylic over the main part of your little tower top, just like that. A very thin layer works. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Just spread that over the top. Then dip a floss pick into some clear acrylic, or at the end, the little pokey end of your floss pick. You can also use something like a dotting tool or a toothpick or anything else. But then you're going to carve out your bricks in your castle. Just add those, and as your acrylic is setting, you may find it's getting a little stickier to work with, and that's fine. When you get to actually adding the bricks over your tower, you'll see that I didn't apply it over the entire thing and then try to carve these in. I did small sections at a time so that I didn't have to worry about it setting before I was ready. Apply a little bit more of that gray acrylic under where the tower top will be. Set that down on top of there and hold it until it begins to set so it's not going to float away on you. And as you can see, you've got a really nice dimensional background, foreground of that tower top, and it really makes it stand out and look really so dimensional. And then I'm going to be, like I said, applying another layer of acrylic over the tower itself to sculpt in the bricks, but I'm doing it small sections at a time. So there's the first one. Going back to my floss pick, and very frequently dip it into some clear acrylic so that you don't have to worry about it sticking to the acrylic. Then carve in my bricks just like that. And when you get to the area that you want to have Rapunzel's window, which I will show you in just a second, you're going to want to kind of carve away the area where the window will be. So don't add another layer. So after I laid down that acrylic, as you can see, I'm spreading it away from where the window will be. So create a really nice arched window. Going back to your floss pick, add your bricks, just like that. Anywhere that you need to, add those little brick lines. And when you're making bricks, the way I like to do is I like to make a straight line going horizontally across the nail. Then when you're adding the vertical lines, you're going to want to stagger them so they're not all in the same spot, so you're not creating a checkered board. So add the lines to the first row, and then go through and add the second row of lines in between them. Then when you're reaching the tip of the nail, make your bricks much smaller so it looks like they're fading into the distance down below. And then going around the border of your window, you're going to want to add a little frame. So use much smaller beads of acrylic and add little individual brick spots going all the way down there. Just like that. Just keep adding them. It's going to create a little bit of a extra 3D bump, and it'll make it stand out some more and make it a little bit easier to see the window. So then after you're done with all of your brick sculpting, I'm going to take my e-file in a fairly narrow bit, and I'm going to basically make a hole in one of the lower corners of the window for Rapunzel's hair to come through in the end of in the end. So then when you are done with that, I'm going to sculpt Rapunzel. So I started out with a circle of white acrylic for the base for her face, and as you can see, I kind of overlapped her window just a little bit, so I'm kind of going over it, or oh, not her window, but her hair hole. And the reason I did that is because the hole I ended up with was bigger than I wanted it to be. So I'm going to cover it a little bit with Rapunzel herself so that it's shrinking the hole down, making it so that I don't have to have such thick hair. And then after you have that, I added her shirt or her dress with pink. The little top of it, you don't see too much. Then go over her face with a layer of cover pink. And then I'm going to take some pastel yellow acrylic, but you can also use like a golden color would work. And I'm going to add her hair. Now her hair, you don't have to add any length to it at all. Just add the hair that's actually on the top of her head. The rest of it will come with the thread later in the hair that you're pulling. So now with thread, I'm going to cut off strands of hair. So I ended up using 9, but I probably had room and I could use 12 if I wanted to, but 9 is what I started with. And I was like, well, I'm not going to take it out and redo it. So after you have all of your pieces of thread cut, line them up so they're about starting at the same place. And I didn't measure them, so I don't know for sure how long they were, approximately 3 inches or so. I ended up with extra, so you can use however much you like. But then I just took some water and twisted the ends together, and then I'm going to knot them. So just twist them around, make a very simple knot. I used a little bit of a scissors end to make my knot making easier. And after you have your knot made, go ahead and with a wire threader, or I just use a little looped piece of wire, pull your thread through the nail so that the knot is at the back of the nail. And then spread your pieces of thread into 3 equal sections and do a very simple braid, which is why I did 3 a number that was divisible by 3 for the number of hair strands I did. I did 9. Like I said, I could have done 12. If you have a smaller nail and smaller hole, you might only need to do 6. It also depends on what kind of thread you're using. If you're using something really, really fine, it may take more. If you're doing something that is a little bit thicker, like embroidery thread or upholstery thread, it may not take quite as much. Like if it's embroidery thread, you may only need 3 strands to make your braid, which would probably actually be easier. So that is definitely an option. So after you have it where you've braided it as long as you want, for me, I braided it so it's about the length of the rest of the nail. Just add a little drop of nail glue right over that braid as you're holding it, and that should act as your little hairband. Give her a haircut so you don't have so much extra length, and then you can pull it through and you can really have fun with this. Because let's face it, playing with Rapunzel is the whole point of this nail. Then I'm going to take some gold paint. I'm going to add that to make her yellow hair match the strands of her hair a little bit better. And then with black paint, I'm going to add details. So I'm going to add some details over her hair, make it stick out a little bit better from the background of the nail. Just go through, and I ended up with too thick of black line, so I applied more of the gold acrylic paint to mask that a little bit. Add some details around her shirt and her dress, her face. I did very simple basic details, so just eyes on her face. I don't worry about a mouth or anything else. It's so small that it's not necessary to stress too much about those really, really tiny details. Then with diluted black paint, I added a little shadow around all of the bricks except the ones on her window, and also in the back and behind her, which you don't see too much of what's going on behind her, but just kind of fill that in with black so it doesn't show up so much. Just kind of wash over it. The black, if it's really diluted, it'll settle into the crevices of the bricks and make the brick texture that you worked so hard on really stick out. Then wash over it with some white to brighten it. Make it look, this is just going to help make your bricks look like they're a bunch of different colors and actual stone and not just the same shade of gray over the entire thing. With black, I did outline some of the bricks right around her window just to make those stand out a little bit better and show up some better. And I also added a little bit more black behind her just to make it look like she's really standing in the window and there's stuff happening. I also defined a couple more of the bricks on the top of the tower, just anywhere I felt like there needed to be a little bit more visibility with them. I added some more outlines there of black. So then in the background, you're going to want to apply a little bit of gel sealer that's basically over just the little bit of original nail that shows most of this is covered up, and then apply some matte top coat over the rest of the 3D art, so over the entire tower and over Rapunzel. After that is dried, you are all done. I am so happy with the way this turned out. This nail is actually the first nail idea or concept that I came up with after Melody was born, and so I have been wanting to do this one for quite a while. I just love how it turned out. I hope you guys love it as much as I do, and please share any recreations with me on Facebook or Instagram. I would love to see them, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!